started. This is the Ingram house. Richard and Kelly Ingram, 6 boys, and myself in the middle. The music started here.
Right here is where he started his career, right in this yard. In Alton, Illinois. This is my auntie, his sister, Aunt Daisy. She's basically the dictionary encyclopedia of the family.
That's what they all say.
And she knows step by step, inch by inch of my dad's career. I'm gonna let her talk. Take it away.
Well, it all started here, as Eric said. We were young kids. We came from Jackson, Tennessee, and this is where we landed. This area you see is called the Garden. Everybody out here had gardens, so we grew up a close-knit family. Everybody sang. It comes from my mother, her side of the family. And my mother taught the guys all parts, bass, baritone, tenor, all the parts. They sang that, and as I said, that's where the music started. So Luther was a young guy looking for a dream. They all sang together in a quartet, gospel quartet, and they decided they were going to try pop for a while. Oldest brother Archie more or less wanted to keep a gospel group, and Luther had a dream. And so he struck out doing shows here in town, local school over here. He was always in the talent show. As I was telling everybody, the kids would ask me, "Is your brother Luther going to be on the talent show?" I don't know, he hasn't said yet. They just asked me again, "He's going to be on there?" So one day I said, "Yeah," he said he was. Damn, we got second. Luther was that good. Everybody knew it, and we just knew one day he would be a star.
A lot of his songs that he recorded, that he sang, he wrote right here in this yard, up under this tree. We used to eat. My grandmother would cook food and hand it to us out of the window of the house. And we would just sit around while he wrote songs with my other uncles. Talk about the Gardenias and the Midwest Crusade.
Oh yeah, the Gardenias was the group that Luther had, along with his brothers Archie and Richard. And there was Tiny Perry, Lawrence Witherspoon, Dilbert Caldwell. They started out as a quartet group called the Crusaders. And they later turned that into the Gardenias to go do some work with Ike and Tina up in Cleveland, Brewster Street.
What year was that?
That had to be about early 60s. They went up there, and well, the time frame is when James Brown was cutting Please, Please, Please. He was in one side of the studio, King Federal Records. They were in Federal, James was in King. So that'll give you a good time frame of what was going on. So they were right there with the mix, and they were the Gardenias. They changed the name from the Crusaders to be the Gardenias just temporarily. And they went there and they cut 3 songs. One of them my mother wrote, I Found the Time. My Baby She's Tops, and another one. Eric, you remember that one? These are right now. But anyway, these songs are on an album called Trailways. They did record it, and you'll find it for sale in a box set. We didn't know it was recorded. They never told them. Years later, we found out it did exist. But it was a long road. Ike was interested in them really before Tina came on the scene. But when Tina came, Ike kind of just took it there, and Luther decided he's going to go and try New York. By the time Archie went to the service, and the group broke up. But Luther decided, you know, he was still looking for that dream. So he took a lonely one-man journey to New York City. He told me, he said, you know, I made a wrong turn on the Holland Tunnel and looked up, I got out and looked up and saw the Ed Sullivan building. So I went in. He said, and the lady at the desk said, you're a singer, you look like one. Give it those guys over there, they're going over to Decca Records. So he was signed that afternoon. That's how fast it happened. And the rest is history. Right.
5, 6 years old, we used to slide down the hill on that golf course. I used to think it was the Grand Canyon. It was so high when I was that little. Now it doesn't seem that way, but that's the hill that we used to slide down on our little sleighs and sleds and stuff in the snow. we look forward to that every winter. We would come up here and do that.
We're standing here on Young Street. Our street is Lewis. This neighborhood is around 1 block. You come in and go out the same way you came, get lost. And this street in the early 50s was all about entertainment. The club down there was called the Imperial Club. Ike Turner played down there. You had Little Milton, people like that. Everybody was out here. This street would have cars on both sides. You could barely get through the middle. And they would have shows down there. And we could hear it from the house, because I wasn't allowed to go near it. But of course the brothers were old enough to be down there. So this was what the garden was about. It's called Lincoln Garden. It was an entertainment mecca. For those who lived out here, everybody knew. People out knew this was the place. It was jumping. That's the garden. The street right here, you can see everything going on. And you had a couple other places here, little clubs, right around the neighborhood. But this was all family people. We had jobs and security, but you know, we had all this going on.
The whole family lived right here.
Yeah, the whole family.
And my Uncle
all
Jamie
the brothers
lived up here.
Yeah, everybody was here, so it was just a family. This street and that street was just family. You know, I could look out the door to my mother's house and I come to visit, everybody was family folks. But that's what this little neighborhood was. And the people who were here beside us, we knew them from the time we came. You know, they were people who lived here for years. So it was a really close-knit group.
What about Jimi Hendrix and people like that back in the early days?
Well, Luther knew Jimmy. I never got to meet him, but he did know him. And Jimmy, I don't know if he lived in East St. Louis for a while, but he was over there in East St. Louis, and they hooked up. So when they got to New York, they roomed together there because they knew each other.
Right.
He thought Jimmy was a good artist, you know. He was fantastic. Luther thought a lot of him. He was gifted.
And so with Ike Turner and the Tina Turner thing, how did that pan out as far as him leaving? Did he just up and leave, or how did that work out?
You mean as far as Luther?
Yeah.
Well, at the time when Tina came in, he was dealing with Luther in the group before she came. And when Tina came in, he kind of put all of his eggs in one basket and started dealing with Tina. So they ventured off into their own activities, Luther and the Gardenias, and then Luther himself. Our family all lived out here. My grandmother lived in a little house over there. Before it burned down, it was much like that greenhouse. Everybody was here. We didn't have to go too far to catch up with the family because we were all out here. It was nothing but fun. Daddy worked at steel mill. Mother was a homemaker, a good woman, good father. We were raised right, close-knit. That's why when Luther went out on the road, he didn't forget us. You know, we were always close. I always knew where he was. He give me numbers. Don't give anybody this number. But if anything happened to Mother, anybody back there, call me. And just, if I'm not here, tell them who you are. And they'll get to me, and I'll get back to you. I was in that yard singing. It would draw people. We'd have a yard full of folks. They just couldn't leave. As long as you were singing, you'd have a group, a crowd. Something about his voice. You know, a lot of people, If Loving Is Wrong was the gold and the platinum. But To the Other Man was Luther. That song stays in my head because that's who he was. I think that's why people were drawn to him, because he had a real natural love for humanity, and it showed. We're coming up to a site here that was originally the Imperial Club. It was a 5,000-foot building, concrete block building. And it was the draw in Alton. People came from Madison, Venice, East St. Louis, everywhere to this club. It's all gone now, but then it was the place. Everybody came. It was cars, as I said, lined up. It was no room to park anything. They had a circular stage. It was beautiful. When it was really in operation, you could look all across town out of the back of this. During the summer, you could see over the oak wood and all across town because it was glassed in, that circular stage. It was beautiful. It had some real authentic stuff going on in there, you know, as far as the decor. brothers, Jesse, Frank, and Tommy, they were the original G-men. So they followed him a lot, you know, out there traveling and doing backup. Jesse played guitar. He was a guitar player.
Luther, Ingram, and the G-Men.
Right. It's my three younger brothers. Archie, Richard, Luther, me, then Jesse, Frank, and Tommy. So they were the G-men. And I was featured.
What about All in the Name of Love?
That song was written by a younger brother, Tommy. He wrote that song in Still Away to the Hideaway. We all gave Luther a song to finalize that New York contract. And Archie gave him I've Got Your Love in My Life, which went on later to be recorded by the gospel singer Inez Andrews. Richard gave him I Like the Feeling. I gave him It's Too Much. All songs we wrote. We just gave it to him, you know, that was going to end the deal where he could come out of that New York system. So those records are on one of the albums, I think the 78 album. Yeah. Johnny asked him to come up and do this for him, so I'm going up and do that album, and that's going to be it. So we supplied him with songs to go up there, and that's what he did. That was the last recording he did to Coco Records.
My name is Archie Ingram, and I'm the older brother of Luther Ingram. And we're talking about singing with the Gardenias, the recording group that started Luther singing. We were siblings, there's Luther, myself, and Richard, which was younger than I am. Richard is under me, and Luther's younger than Richard. So the three of us were singing by ourselves with the group here. And this is how Luther actually got started into singing. We always sing, but when I was born, my mother was married young, and my dad got married, and my grandfather passed away. Left my grandmother with these young kids, and she and my dad got married. And I grew up with my uncles. They were just the same as my brothers because we all were within the same age brackets, only 5 or 7 years between us. So they all sang with my mother as a sibling group. And as we got big enough, they switched us into them, kind of merged us into them, and we each picked up a part and we started singing with them. And that's how we got our singing, I guess you might say, our singing started. Growing up, back in my day, you didn't play around singing in the club and then going to church getting out singing. They couldn't put up with that. They do that type of thing now, but you couldn't get away with that then. And your parents wouldn't let you, for one thing. And the second thing, I feel that God wouldn't let you do it because I never felt comfortable singing rock and roll. I was singing on the stage one night, looking down on the floor, people dancing and going on, and it looked like a bunch of maggots in the bowl to me. And I wasn't comfortable in the clubs because so much stuff would start to happen and people would start fighting over in the corner. And I just would rather stay in church and go to church where things made sense to me, and there was no danger out there in the church. Later on, in our singing, we became involved with other people, doing other things, and we got into a contest. If you remember, Ted Mack had an amateur show, and he was going around scouting for talent. And one of the agents came in the area and we heard about it, and we went out to one of the contests and we competed for a place in the contest. We goes over to the band, sang with a bunch of groups that were there, So finally the man told us, well, said, you guys, I like the way you sing, I like the sound, but I'm not interested in somebody singing gospel songs, and because the place where you make money is on the rock and roll scene. So I asked him, I said, well, why? He said, well, said, I can sell 10 rock and roll songs while I'm trying to sell one gospel. I said, that's how fast they're moving. And after I got into it, I found out that there were a time that maybe within a week's time, you would have 3 #1 hits would come out during that time. And it was during the time you had a lot of competition out there. James Brown and the Flames came out. And believe it or not, we were on stage with Elvis Presley down at Hill Auditorium. And they ran Elvis across the stage so fast, nobody ever realized he was out there. And that's how fast the competition was moving. And Jackie Wilson, he was killing everybody because he was a showman. And that was the kind of competition that we were dealing with. So we go back and ask one of the groups to sing their song for us back in the back room there. And these guys sang the song a couple of times. We stood there and listened to them. Jotted down a few words of it, got it together, and when the man got ready to leave, we told him we'd like to audition for him. And so he said, what do you mean, the audition for the contest? I said, yeah, we were going to sing the song the other group sang. So he said, well, looked kind of funny. He said, yeah, okay, come on. So we go in back and we sang the song that the other group sang. So we won the contest. And they signed us up to sing, and they hooked us up with Ike, was going to be our band. And that's how we got involved with Ike Turner.
You know, we stood here and waved at Luther all the way to that corner up there until we couldn't see his car once he turned the corner. And we knew he was headed to New York City.